It looked like it came straight off a racetrack, but it was street legal. Barely. This was no ordinary car. It was the Dodge Viper, a savage machine wrapped in American muscle, born in a time when safety took the back seat and raw power sat behind the wheel. But behind the roar of its monstrous V10 and its record-breaking performance lies a story that's anything but typical. A car that rose to fame, terrified even seasoned drivers, and was eventually forced off the road, not because it failed, but because it refused to be tamed. So, why was the Dodge Viper unlike anything else on the road? And what made it one of the most dangerous production cars ever built? Let's take a ride through the wild, untamed legacy of the Viper. Origin. Back in the late 80s, Dodge was in trouble. The brand had become a punchline. Minivans, fleet sedans, practical family boxes, with all the excitement of a tax return. Meanwhile, Ford was flexing with the Mustang. Chevy had the Corvette, and Dodge? Forgotten. But deep inside Chrysler's corporate walls, a group of rogue engineers and executives had had enough. They weren't going to let Dodge go down as the brand of beige commuters and rental cars. They had a plan. A wild, outrageous gasoline-fueled plan. Not a car built to meet market demand. Not a car designed for comfort or practicality. No, this was a statement. Something loud, something unapologetic. Something that would punch the automotive world in the face and scream, "Dodge is back!" And what they built was the Viper. Dodge was motivated to compete with the other big cats of the market, and was determined to go head-to-head with the Corvette without copying it. This car was going to be everything that the Corvette was missing. That was the plan. But this wasn't the only reason. Dodge wanted to let the world know once again what made its vehicles truly exceptional. This vehicle was intended to showcase the true core engineering of the brand. But to do that, there was work required. And Dodge was not even a little scared of it. A term thrown around for this car quite often was the halo car of Dodge. A halo car is typically a product with a low volume and a large profile. These big boys are like insanely expensive marketing campaigns. They bring the brand attention, get the customers to the dealerships, and increase the perceived value of other products by the brand. While that was most likely a part of the approach, this car was much bigger than just a halo car. The initial stages of the Dodge Viper. So how did this beast actually become reality? Well, this car was a strict passion project. Many big names were on the table: Bob Lutz, Tom Gale, and Francois Casting. However, there was another interesting name involved in the creation of this monster: Carroll Shelby. Shelby was involved in the process, as this car was meant to be a modern-day Shelby Cobra, a lightweight minimalist and brutal American beast that was all about raw power and zero frills. But here's the twist. This rebel project wasn't backed by a blank check or years of development time. Far from it. Dodge wanted it done fast and cheap. The design of this monster was absolutely brutal. It was totally analog, and it was proud of it. The juggernaut powering this beast was a humongous 8-liter V10 engine. But what made this engine choice so very special was the fact that these engines were originally for Chrysler's LA trucks. However, the engine was modified and perfected for the Viper. Chrysler was also the proud owner of Lamborghini at the time, which was a big help to Dodge, as it made reworking the engine a very smooth process. And to lighten the overall weight of the vehicle, multiple components of this engine were made out of aluminum. The development of this monster began in 1988, and the car was ready to be revealed to the market by 1991. In merely 3 years, this brand crafted a beast that was designed to take over the world by storm. In 1991, the pre-production RT10 Dodge Viper was the Indianapolis 500 pace car, driven by the legend Carroll Shelby himself. Shelby's weight was added to this vehicle, and the car was widely accepted as a performance icon. The specs of the beast. The car was made to be overpowered, and there was not much in its way that would keep the beast from being just that. The heart of the vehicle was an absolute work of art that could not be ignored under any circumstances. The 8.0-liter V10 engine was producing 400 horsepower at 4,600 RPM. The material used for the block and heads was aluminum, along with other components. The configuration of this vehicle was pretty standard, and the engine was positioned longitudinally behind the front axle. This gave the beast better balance, and the well-distributed weight of the engine provided help with maintaining traction at high speeds. The car was meant to reflect the strong and raw core of the Dodge brand. The engine was a beast in its own right, delivering absolute power right off the bat, without any turbo lag. The engine was also highly durable, as it was based on an engine meant for trucks. The sound of this engine produced was marvelous as well, and the feel and power it provided really made it the center of attention. But another feature of the vehicle, which made it so popular among purists, was the 6-speed manual transmission. There was no automatic options that came with this vehicle either. The manual transmission was all it offered. This was specifically due to the massive amounts of torque that the engine produced. The engineers knew that to manage such high levels of torque, drivers would need a manual transmission that could control it. The manual transmission also made the drivers more engaged with the car, which helped them build a bond with their vehicle. The chassis of the Viper was obviously supposed to keep up with the intense theme the brand was going with, and the assignment was understood, and it was understood well. The chassis of this juggernaut was inspired by GT-class race cars. It was a multi-tube steel space frame chassis, explicitly designed to hold up well under extreme circumstances while being comparatively lightweight. Fiberglass composite body panels were also mounted to the sides of the frame. The car was a rear-wheel drive, and to make the experience better for the drivers, the beast was equipped with a heavy-duty rear axle, which allowed only limited slip. There was a clutch-based limited slip differential in this beast. Gear ratios were also optimized for acceleration. The car was insanely extreme, and that is still an understatement. This beast had no roof, and it was only added later. The vehicle had plastic curtains in the windows, no glass. The doors did not even have extreme handles in the beginning. The doors were opened and closed by reaching inside the car. The plan worked. The car was loved by many, and the numbers were skyrocketing. People were obsessed with the Viper. But that is not the end of this story. The car did quite well in the 90s. Maybe it was due to the demand for nostalgic American muscle and raw feel that made it so successful. But the car was doing well. The exclusivity only added to the hype of this beast, as the demand went way over the supply of the vehicle in the early years. The car was providing performance that had no rivals. The Viper was simply in a league of its own. This was amazing for the Dodge brand, as it was once again viewed as a brand focused on performance and power. The plan worked. The car was loved by many, and the numbers were skyrocketing. People were obsessed with the Viper. But that is not the end of this story. The downfall. So how did a car that was so highly regarded among the people become such a significant problem? After all, why was the Viper eventually deemed too dangerous to sell? Brace yourself. This is where the story takes a painful turn. In the late 90s, Chrysler merged with Daimler-Benz. The people at Daimler-Benz were more focused on luxury and efficiency. This brand did not have any room for raw power and American muscle. This is the time when the investments in the Viper began to cut down. Daimler simply wasn't interested in the niche appeal that the Viper had, and it was pretty noticeable. By 2008, the economic circumstances of the business had worsened. During this time, the brand was actively trying to sell the Viper project, but a deal never materialized. The Viper was still providing performance that was attractive to a segment of the market, but by 2010, the economic conditions worsened to the point that Dodge paused the production of their star child. In 2013, after Fiat acquired Dodge, it decided to give the Viper another try. The car was relaunched as the SRT Viper. But this time around, the market reacted differently than the company was used to. The sales were super low. This was due to many reasons. The market had actual competition this time. The Porsche 911 and Nissan GT-R were taking over the market. The no automatic policy also began backfiring as more drivers were now used to the modern tech. Despite its best efforts, the brand was unable to revive the hype. What amplified these feelings was how dangerous this vehicle had become by 2017. Due to its rigid and orthodox design and engineering, the car did not forgive even the most minor of mistakes. Since the Viper had no ABS or traction control, even a slight mistake could make the driver lose complete control over the car. This car demanded respect. The end. The situation became more serious when the brand was not able to meet new federal side impact crash regulations. This was the final nail in the coffin. Redesigning the Viper would have been way too expensive, so Dodge decided that putting the car to sleep would be a much better call. And that is precisely what they did. After being on top of the game for years, the Viper was finally put to sleep. This was the whole story of the legendary Viper, a car that was just too much. For more stories like these, subscribe to our channel. Let us know your thoughts on the Dodge Viper in the comments below. See you soon!